Hey everybody, welcome back to another Judgment commentary of Owarimonogatari, but today we're going to be checking out episode 7, the final episode of the Sodachi Lost Arc. But last time, on episode 6, Araragi and Hanekawa sat down to have a discussion with Sodachi, and it was intense, like I thought it would be, but the subject matter they started getting into was even more intense than I expected. Man, I said before that I thought I had a good grasp on Sodachi's perspective up until this point, but yeah, that last episode added a whole lot more. Turns out after all the abuse that Sodachi has suffered through, her mental state has deteriorated a bit. She tries to justify and validate all of the bad stuff that happened to her, and it's not particularly healthy to do that, but it's not like you can't understand where she's coming from. But what was important that we learned was how Sodachi knew that Araragi's parents were police officers. Turns out that one day, Araragi's parents just brought her home with them, supposedly to protect her from her abusive family, and just keep her there until they could sort things out. And while she was there, she saw Araragi and his sisters getting along, living it up in a nice, clean house, not being abused, and it didn't sit well with her. She decided that she was just gonna get up and walk back home and try to fix her family herself. Now, Araragi's parents bringing Sodachi over was not, official police business. This was them acting on their own accord, so this was not something that they could continue to pursue. Once she got up and walked away, they can't just take her back because that would probably be kidnapping, right? And you'd think that if they were aware of the fact that she was being abused, they could just alert Child Protective Services for that, but the sad thing is I'm well aware of how, at least in the US, Child Protective Services can occasionally fail. So perhaps they were just simply powerless in this instance to actually do anything. They might not have even been able to get permission to go check the house without proper cause. But I was informed of a deeper reason as to why Araragi forgot that Sodachi had been brought to his home, and it's that apparently Araragi's parents did that all the time, where they would just bring a kid home with them to keep them safe for a little bit. And it happened so frequently, he just didn't pay them any mind. Because this was indeed a unique circumstance of Araragi forgetting something, because typically when he forgets something, he remembers it once people bring it back up to him. But in this case, even after people would tell him about it, he still didn't remember. He was just going off of what they said. So this was just completely expunged from his mind, or rather, it never really settled in there to begin with. And honestly, hearing Sodachi lay down everything that occurred was a very painful experience, because it's a very real thing, and it was just tragic hearing it all laid out the way it was. And what assisted that was, of course, the amazing voice acting work from Sodachi's voice actress. She frickin' killed it. She nailed the role with this one. And I'm in agreement with the comments I got that this was a very standout performance. But after all that tragedy was laid out, she presented an option to Araragi, a mission, if you will, that he needs to find her mother, hopefully maybe to get some closure on that, because turns out her mom just up and left her one day. They were living out on her own, she'd sealed herself in her room, and then one day Sodachi just comes back from school and her mom's gone. And it was rather mysterious too, because despite the fact she said the door was locked from the outside, she just got out, relocked the door, went out the front door, and then locked that one again too. Obviously sounds like something is very, very amiss here, and I'm not sure how their search for her mom is going to go. Also, sorry if my hair's been looking really wild and out of sorts lately. I've just let it grow way too long lately, so I either need to get it cut, start wearing hats, or find a decent brush. Whichever comes first, but for now, we should probably just get right into this episode here, see how this story comes to an end. From a very limited, quick amount of research, a body will typically just be liquefied a month after death, but the skeleton will remain and will usually apparently stick around for upwards of 20 years, if not more, depending on how they're buried. And in this case, it wasn't buried, period. So I have no idea how long the skeleton would stick around. I venture to believe it would not be completely gone a few years later, you know. I would think a skeleton would still be there. Unless the cleanup crew mistook it for Halloween decorations. I don't know. But hey, that's a technicality at this point. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that this entire Sodachi saga has been quite enlightening, you know? Just from beginning to end, they slowly introduced us to Sodachi and just fleshed her out way greater than most characters get at all in this, let alone so consecutively. Usually when they try to flesh out a character, they'll introduce them in one smaller arc, and then, you know, like down the line, they'll give them an arc or two later to give you more depth into them and their circumstances. But with Sodachi, we got 3 arcs in a straight row. 7 episodes dedicated to her, to explaining everything about her. And it's a breath of fresh air, a welcome change, honestly. It's not common that Monogatari does that. And of course, we got a whole bunch of Ogi along the way, guiding us through this whole process, except for that last part with Lost, where she remained mostly absent because Hanekawa beat her to the punch on it, but she did hop in at the end to tag team it with her to give Araragi the hints. And in the end, I mostly pieced it together. The only thing that I made a false assumption on was that she had found her body and hid it to keep up a lie, but instead it was just that she somehow decomposed quickly enough to where when she opened the door, she was just gone. She was completely, whatever was left anyway, was completely unrecognizable as her. Hence why the doors were still locked. It was the obvious answer, that she never left the room because she was dead. And the only way, realistically, that she would be dead would be if she did it to herself. Man, what a sad story. And the thing about Sodachi's story is just that usually when we get, you know, tragic tales within Monogatari, there's a supernatural spin to them, you know? Where it's like, oh, they died and now they're just like a ghost stuck forever. But now in this, there was nothing supernatural to this. It was a totally real just thing that happens even in real life. And that makes it just worse somehow. Made it all the more painful to just bear witness to. It was grounded, totally grounded. And at the end of the day, despite the wear that it had on Sodachi's mind, she's actually maintained a lot of strength despite all that, you know? She's pretty self-reliant for the most part. I mean, yeah, she's having to rely on welfare and stuff, but that's because she's a teenager. But she's held very strong through all of it, and I gotta say again how impressive that is. So I'm hopeful, like Araragi, that she can find her way through this and have a good life. I think she can. Okay, according to what I'm looking at here, the next arc is in fact going to take up the entire rest of the first season of Owarimonogatari. That's episodes frickin' 8 through 13, so dang. Nearly half taken up by that, which is, I guess, fitting because the first half of this was basically all one arc, just one huge continuing one, split across different mini arcs, so making the rest of it just one big arc, not too strange. And it looks like it's called Shinobu Mail. Shinobu Mail? Okay, a Shinobu arc. Cool. It's been a little bit, hasn't it? Mail? Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but I guess we'll see shortly, won't we? But still, all of the Sodachi saga was remarkably good, had a great mystery element to it present pretty much throughout the whole thing, you know? And especially the last part of this was Sodachi Lost. They made it a lot more solvable than the other two. And I think that was by intention. They literally had frickin' Hanekawa and Ogi laying down hint after hint until they got to frickin' 50 to figure it out. Now, we didn't hear the majority of those, but given that we were pretty much able to piece it together by like hint 8, the rest of them were probably just them repeating themselves. But I was enthralled pretty much the whole way through with these. I mean, one of the most grounded and gripping arcs that we've gotten so far, if you ask me. And just this heated rivalry we've got between Ogi and Hanekawa is fascinating. I mean, Hanekawa just bursts in and says she doesn't trust her, and Ogi claps back instantly and has just been ripping her to shreds ever since. But in the end, Hanekawa did, stand strong and managed to help Araragi, even if Ogi didn't seem to think she could. But it is, of course, without a doubt that Ogi could have easily helped him, maybe even more. Who knows? I mean, she knew the answer the whole time, so she would have just been guiding Araragi to it while they were there, rather than Hanekawa having to piece it together herself via their discussions. Unless she didn't know the answer the whole time and also would need to be figuring it out on the fly, but I mean, a lot of the stuff they had to figure out was not based on things Araragi was personally aware of, unlike, with the previous arcs, it was her, digging through his memories about things that he used to know about but doesn't anymore, but in this case, it was stuff that he had no idea about, so maybe she wasn't fully aware of it until Araragi started to hear about it. Who knows? She's a big friggin' question mark. Always has been. Maybe always will be. But I enjoyed this a lot, guys. Hope you did too, but that's it for now, so thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. Subscribe to be updated on more. That'd be great. Next time, episode 8. The beginning of the Shinobu Male arc, which will encompass the rest of Owarimonogatari Season 1. I know there's like a Season 2 of this, which is just like a, like the rest of Owari. It just kind of got split up. When otherwise, I'm pretty sure the novel release order was just them all in a straight row, but the anime didn't do it like that. But what we're going to end up doing after Owari is something we're going to discuss once we're done here. I believe the listing that I'm going with was Koyomi Monogatari was next, which was, from what I can tell, that one an interesting format. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll see. We'll see. I liked these arcs a lot. Can't wait to see what Shinobu Male has to offer, but till then, guys, I will see you guys later.